So S10 boxes are done and dialed in. I'm going to go over how all this stuff fits together. There is, like with any of these flush mounted setups, there's machine parts, there's tolerances, there's pins, there's bolts, there's all kinds of stuff, right? So our main function is that we want this stuff to fit well and move. You don't want the rocker pivots bound down on the spring and fitting tight and all that good stuff, right? So we want the stuff to move smooth. So flip this guy around. So here is all the pieces. So this one is completely assembled, right? So this is, I've got the bolt in there, it's tight. You can see there's just a little bit of clearance in there. The pin, so we're setting the pin diameter. We make a few different, so what we'll do is I've got some pins that we've machined to 3 inches, 550 thousandths. When we weld this thing together, where the pin is 3 inches, 550 thousandths. So that's what it gets welded together with. Then we pull those pins out, ream all these holes, reset that stuff, because this stuff invariably moves. Like, it's just a part of it. Like, there's so much weld going on, it's going to move stuff. So, but we've got those pins lining those holes up. They're 3,550. And so we'll take those guys out, and then we're going to put a 3,520 pin in. So I've automatically put 30 thousandths of movement in there, 30 thousandths of space, right, to make it so that pin will slide in and out of the entire assembly easy. The other thing that happened too is that when we came up with this pin diameter, we can use this. This washer is actually just made out of the same material that the rocker pivots are made out of. So I'm gonna go in, and this fits around that 1-inch pin and sets the spacing. Well, this 1/4-inch space right here makes it so this will slide in there. So what I ended up having to do, I normally have like a registered aluminum pin that goes in here with an Allen bolt, or not an Allen, but a hex bolt. That was not going to fit in there. I had to make sure that this rocker would go all the way up inside of the box. I've got it in 1 hole above stock, bottom hole is stock, 1-inch increments going up. I have it 1 inch above. It goes all the way in there and locks out. Like, it's there's enough room inside of there that the piece can move. So when I made these rocker pivots, this is just the same stuff that we've done in all the other flush mount type systems and boxes and whatnot. This pin is a piece of chromoly tube. And what I did was I took the 2.5-inch bushing, so you can see that 2.5-inch bushing fits in there no problem. What I've found is that 2.5-inch springs, like this is the S10, has a 2.5-inch, it's a 2.5-inch wide spring, Calvert spring. It also has this bushing in the front is 2.5 inches wide. Well, just the manufacturing imperfection of the spring, there's a little bit there, and all the paint that's on the spring. If you get this tight a little too close, this just rubs and it doesn't move. It just pinches down in there and it sucks. So I went ahead, when we welded these guys together, used that pin or used that bushing and used 2 20,000 spacers to put 40 thousandths of opening in this thing. Well, it worked out perfectly. So I also machined some 1/385 width spacers to put in here. You actually see that that's going to try to open that up a little bit. Right, doesn't want to go in there. So 2 of those to line that up perfect. This pin in the center for the bushing, and then weld that guy in with the extra space, which makes it so this assembly, the rod end, the misalignments and all the stuff goes right in there. You don't even have to fight it. It slides in perfect. The 2 machine surfaces, or the 4 machine surfaces, right? Like these are machined, that's machined, and then those 2 bushings are machined. But I left this stack up on this thing is, the stack up on this is 1/375. And I machine the bushings at 1/385, so I put 10 thou in there too to make it so that this is easy to take apart. So those are all the things that went into the forethought of making it so this is somewhat easy to work on. Because remember, once you go this route, if you're going to have this bolt hole and this hole or that hole, you're going to start to cover these other holes up. So if you go to make a bar change, this needs to be reasonably easy to take apart, because this is going to have a spring inside of it. It's not going to fall off the side anymore because this pin is welded into the inside of it. There are several things that are very specific to making this work, and without them, it's going to be really hard to work. It's not going to work, and then it's going to be really hard to work on. So the pin in there is 3/520. There's a little bit of movement there. It moves super duper easy. It is exactly what I wanted it to be. It's exactly where we want it to be. Because imagine we're going to add the spring in here, you put a little tension in here, and everything is going on. Like the side to side, you almost can't get side to side on it. Like, it's really small, right? Just a little bit. There's a little bit of tolerance for where the pin slides through right here, because otherwise you can't put this thing together, right? Like, there's got to be a little give. Sorry, I'm aiming the camera all over the place. All right, there's a little bit of give right there, just a hint. And so then this washer goes on right there, and then that's tack welded in place. So the reason I want to tack weld this in place, even though it's registered on the pin, I don't want this stuff to fall off when you're trying to fish this whole thing in there. So at this point in time, all you have to do is keep that pin in. That pin goes in, and you slide that up in there, and then away you go. So I'm trying to make this as easy as humanly possible as well to use, install, work with, you know, all the good stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the overview of that. This is a side piece that's plasma. The other side piece is plasma. The top cap is all these pieces are tab and keyed, so we know exactly where they go together. They're all tab and keyed. And then I wanted to add this gusset to the exterior edge because there's a butt joint weld right there, and now I've got a 90-degree fold where the weld is on opposing sides of that. So this is going to be super hard to split apart. And then you consider that the frame rail, we're looking at the inside face of this guy, right? So this is going to connect to the frame rail right there. So there's going to be a weld here, and then that additional gusset fits on across the top right there. So it's going to be robust. The truck definitely in this section will be stronger than it was before. So, okay, so I got the rocker pivot. Let's aim down. There we go, much better. All right, so check that thing out. So we went ahead and just got rid of the debris on the side of the spring, cleaned the eyelet up, used the wire wheel at first to see how much it was paint, and then actually just ended up using a flap disc and just knocked it clean. So you can see that we got some clearance right there, just barely. If I had not put that together, oh yeah, so you can see it's actually just right. Like it's really, really. There's not a lot of clearance. Is what my point is, right? But that moves extremely easy. So that's what we're looking for. So you can see I got those washers. Got those washers tack welded in place. Got the pin slid through there. Everything is ready to go. This spring is ready to install. I'm not going to put this in there, right? Like it just goes in there with the rod end and stuff because I'm just test fitting some stuff and making sure it works. But yeah, there you go. So this will be the pin that'll be supplied with it. These rockers will be supplied with it. And then don't be afraid to clean these springs up because, like you can see, look at the paint. This is never, like this is huge. Like you can actually see at some point in time, like the paint wasn't totally dry. That's a huge divot of paint. It's cool because it's painted like lots of paint and it's probably not going to rust, right? But this is bad because we have no clearance. So, you know, feel free to sand, clean this guy up, and then just maybe fog it with a thin kind of spray paint or something like that. So that way you don't get some rust going on. But yeah, okay, moving on. Okay, so I think Mike's been working on this for like 15 minutes. We cheated a little bit because obviously we already cut these rivets off and got that plate, or got the factory mount point off of there earlier. But there you go. There's the cut path, right? So you just use the wire wheel until the wire wheel was, kind of got that surface. Because this is like black tar kind of nastiness. And it'll just plug up your cut off any of your wheels and whatnot. So yeah, the wire wheel works good from there, and then you can just hit it with a little soft disc right there, and there goes my microphone. That's terrible. Wish it would just stay on my shirt. Okay, so we're just gonna leave it right there. Okay, so you put this guy on there, like so. Went ahead and drilled that hole. These holes are so close, like maybe 10 or 15 thou off or something like that, maybe even less. You can put a 3/8 bolt through it. That's kind of where I was, gunning for. I've got those rivets are locking that piece in right there. And so then, yeah, just mark this out. He used a one of these guys, just got because on the template, I wanted to make sure that you could reuse this template. So you got your straight lines there, and then your 2 straight lines there, and then just connect them together using one of these little units. Right? Just like something like that. This might not be as easy that way. Go like that. There we go. All right, so just get a straight edge or a ruler. Hell, even at this point, there's a nice straight edge right there. Bam.
And then we do the bottom.
Oh, there you go. So then you just put that bottom edge right there, because remember, you got to cut the inside too. So this is not a very professional video, but I kind of feel like this would just be like if you were installing this at your house on the weekend. So only you're probably not doing it with a forklift. Epic. All right, so we were just kind of like bench racing this out loud. We're going to cut this big pocket of this frame rail out, and all that's going to be left is this guy right here. So we decided, what would you have at home? Maybe just a random piece of scrap angle iron? Probably. So we just cleaned this little spot off the frame rail right here. We got the trusty MIG welder right there. We're going to throw a clamp here and here just to hold that up. Now, granted, we obviously don't have any of this weight going on the back of the frame either. It's just kind of hanging out here. And we also intend on leaving one side completely connected and do them one at a time. So hopefully that helps too. So this is something to consider when you're doing this install, that you are cutting quite a bit of this frame rail out. So could be worth just a little support, and whatever, you could weld that on and then just grind that weld back off once you're done, and no one will ever know. Say a little sander love and it'll be great. All right, this thing is, I just installed this by myself. That still pivots, no problem. So you can see that making this straight across right there, it's just going to be a little better weld surface. But it's okay. Live and learn. So yeah, this is dialed. So we were able to use the template, which is right here. So we got the template. So put the template up there. Those holes already match some holes in the chassis. Those two holes are the rivet holes, and then you can see that the bottom hole lines up, just reference. And then we drilled that hole, and then cut that profile out. My brother did spend a little bit of time just kind of sanding, and then that way it wasn't just blown up and ginormous. So we got that all dialed in, and that's really the extent of it. We did go ahead and throw this piece of angle iron right here. This is a pretty big pocket to cut out of the frame. We have not done the passenger side yet, but I figured somebody in their garage probably got something like this laying around. Maybe clamp that guy, throw a little weld right there, away we go. You could bend this pretty easy before, but with the, we put that on there, chopped the frame, and you could still, it was like, hey, it wants to pivot right there against that piece. It's like, yeah, that's crazy. We're glad we put that piece in there. Now that we've put just these 3 bolts in, none of this is welded. We just put these 3 bolts in, and it's really, really strong again. So it's very fascinating how just triangulating that back together really makes a big difference. So, but you can see how far up there that rocker pivot goes. There's plenty of clearance everywhere. That thing moves clean and smooth. It's exactly what you want. So then let's cover this little guy. Love my camera skills, aiming at the ground. So you can see we weld right across there, weld this interior edge. You're gonna weld that interior edge, and then we made this cool gusset. So this gusset triangulates there. So this is gonna, a little filler panel right there. Mike's making the press brake pieces right there. This is gonna weld all the way across right there. And then on this edge right there, you can see that we left that a little bit long. Make that a nice fillet weld, and then just go in there and kind of profile that deal with the flapper disc and make this thing beautiful. So there you go. You can see that the spring is all the way installed, sitting in the slider right there, ready to do stuff. Yeah, it's looking super good. I'm really, really happy with it. Turned out really nice. So yeah, these guys are ready to go. We cut out a few more sets. We're gonna be welding on them next week. Get these things wrapped up. Let's go ahead and look at this. This side's not cut. So you can see there's this side is unmolested, right? So all we've done is just knocked the factory spring bracket off. There's some material inside of that hole. That hole's a little tiny bit full of some junk, so is what it is. But you can see that's lined up there. That's lined up there. Drill that hole right there, and away you go. So we're gonna finish the install on this guy next week, Saturday afternoon. Kind of run out of time, so yeah. Oh wait, Mike's got a press brake bracket. Look at that beautifulness. That is fantastic. Maybe just a little sander love right there or something.
Yeah.
Would you overbend it maybe, or just need to make that edge a little smaller?
It's just running off the die. It either needs a little more material, or
yeah.
I need to just move it slightly.
We'll have this sorted out. Also, you guys are going to be cutting and welding on this stuff, so you have to understand that you're going to have to still fit some pieces here and there. So that's part of the game when you chop the entire frame rail out and put a new mounting system in. So yeah. So hey, note. While I'm standing here talking about this, Mike's going to go over there and he's going to modify that bracket a little bit. I mean, I think at this point in time, like you could probably just bend the little edge and probably weld that thing in there just fine. But when you do go to weld this in, I would strongly suggest having both of your pins inside of this box to make sure it doesn't try to squish. My guess is that it won't because of where the weld is going to be happening, and it might actually want to open it some, and it's not on the sides, so it's going to be on the top. So if we put heat up here, it'll shrink the top. Like imagine putting heat up here, it'll shrink the top. It'll actually open it. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't make sure that this stays open, because if this gets tight, it's just going to be a pain in the ass to use it. So they're coming from me where it'll fit. It's going to be up to you to make sure when you install them that they fit nice. Oh, we got a little revision. Oh, dude, that's killer. Oh yeah, that's money. So this way, this allows you so you can weld that interior edge and then put this press brake cap on after the fact. So that dials that whole frame rail in. Like, this is money. It's turned out really, really good. Extremely happy with this. So, okay, well, that pretty much concludes the video. I imagine that I forgot half a dozen things, but I'm sure somebody will remind me in the comments, and until next time. All right, so I'm sitting here and I just finished up this, putting these clips of this S10 box video together and re-listening to all the stuff that I said. And so in the install part of it, like welding that bracketry to the frame, I said to put the pins in. So I still think you put the pins in, leave the pins in there. It's going to help to keep the bolt holes going through each other, right? It really shouldn't shrink because it really shouldn't squeeze the box together. It should actually open it up, right? Because you're welding across that forward face and then across that top face, right? So it's going to try to shrink that. I just don't want the situation to arrive where you get the thing welded in and then the bolt holes are tweaked like a little bit, or it does try to collapse in just a tiny bit, because trying to put that entire spring assembly, you're going to have the rocker pivot on there, you're going to have the pin on there, and you're going to slide that whole assembly up in there. It's not hard, but it's also, there's a few moving pieces to it. So, and then if you're going to try to do this at the track, like say you actually want to try a bar change and you're going to go from the top hole to the bottom hole or whatever the situation is, the springs are still going to be connected to the housing. So you're going to be in this situation where you've got to drop the traction bar piece, and you might have to drop it down a couple of holes. Say you're all the way on the top hole, you might have to drop it down 1 or 2 holes to gain enough access to rotate the pivot back far enough to swap holes. So it's certainly still a bit of a compromise as far as like, it's not as easy to change as a 4-link, but it's kind of like, it is what it is a bit. So you're going to be able to, you drop the back just kind of to touch on that a little bit, just to add length to this video, right? So the back pin or the back traction bar rod end position, you could drop the bolt out of it, unthread the bar off the front rod end, and then I'll make it so you could rock the rocker back up inside of itself. And depending on where it's at, you should be able to gain some access to those bolt holes to be able to move that bolt hole up and down. Because remember, it's an Allen, which maybe it'd be better to change it to a 12 point. Maybe a 12 point would be easier. I don't know. Leave me a message. See what you think. Obviously, you could just change it to a 12 point too. A hex bolt, actually, I made that pocket big enough in that machine piece that actually a hex bolt fits in there too. So you could always do a hex bolt. Yeah. So and a socket fits in it with the hex bolt. So that trough is pretty wide. I probably overshot it when I originally designed it, but it's really nice because it fits easy. So anyway, so yeah, there's some things to think about. So my main concern is that that the spring goes back up inside of the box easily,
and you're not fighting it. Because I know how much of a pain in the ass that stuff can be when you're laying on the ground at the racetrack fighting with bolts that are hard to, that you almost have to thread through the holes or whatever. Like, that just sucks. Totally understand. So I tried to avoid all of those problems when I made these things. Last note is when you have, so I've designed that template for cutting on the frame rail. Once you have those two boxes in position, you could throw the springs in it and make sure that everything still lines up. Make sure that the springs are running true. Take some measurements off of it. Make sure the forward and back is good. You know, you might find some imperfections in just the fact that we're chopping the frame out, right? Like chopping all the sheet metal pieces out or frame rail pieces out and putting that box in there. So it's worthwhile. Double check. Like, you can bolt that box back in. Now you have those two front holes and that back hole that you drilled. You can bolt that thing back into place with 3/8 bolts. And so just throw some measuring tape on it. Make sure you're satisfied with that, with that install. So I think I covered all that stuff. I covered all the important stuff. Obviously, if you have any questions, then just email me or call me or whatever. I'm more than happy to assist. And so enjoy. Till next time, we'll catch you later.